Hello and welcome to me, Jo Grace from Human Design Wise, and Rachel can introduce herself in a moment. And we are here to talk about our shared love of celestial bodies and our different modalities. So mine is human design, and we're here to talk about January, and I'm going to be focusing on the different gates, the different transits throughout January, and Rachel will tell you what she's going to be focusing on.
Yeah, so I'm Rachel Maria Bell. I'm an astrologer. So we love how human design and astrology kind of complement each other. And I'm here to just give the planetary updates for the collective, bearing in mind that each of us are individual and carry our own cosmic blueprint within us. And that is us every day of our lives. So obviously these effects will be slightly modified and different for everybody, because each of you who are listening today, you get to be you every day of your life, and there's nothing that replaces understanding you at depth, which both human design and astrology are absolutely marvelous for. But today we're kind of talking about what's going on for all of us. So Jo, do you want to kick us off with what's happening?
Yes, I will. So we're focusing on the month of January. And all of the gates, so in human design, there are 64 gates, and the sun is transiting every 6 days through a different gate. And each of these gates offers us a different archetype or energetic. And all of the gates are in a different center in the body. So if you're familiar with the body graph, if not, you can find links to help you find your own design. Each of the center has these numbers in, and those numbers represent the gates. So what's interesting about January is that all of the gates are in one of the two pressure centers in the human design body graph. So we have the pressure center in the root center, which is connected to pressure from the environment and the adrenals. And we have the crown center, which is pressure to make sense of the world. So all of the gates in January are in pressure centers, and I'll talk as we go through. I'm going to talk about a gate, the first gate, and then Rachel will reflect on the astrology in that during that period of time as well. But it's just interesting to notice that this theme of pressure. And my other world is being a psychotherapist and nervous system health coach, and pressure and stress is one of the huge factors that people come towards therapy. And just to say here that pressure isn't necessarily bad. It isn't. Pressure can be this incredible force for change. It can be this incredible opportunity for us to focus on, what am I feeling? I'm feeling this pressure. How can I transmute and transform this? So this is really what the opportunity of January can offer us. So I'm going to talk about January the 1st to the 5th. And this is, interestingly, in the Gregorian calendar, we are all, conditioned to go, this is the beginning of the new year, etc., etc. And actually, in human design, the beginning of the new year isn't until the 23rd of January, which is moving into gate 41. And what we'll see is, as we look at each of these gates building up to gate 41, is that this period of the first 3 weeks of January is a real ending to the previous year. And so we start with the first gate, which is gate 38, the fighter. So this is in the root center. So the root is connected to the adrenals. And so fight is that adrenalized pressure of like, what? What's this about? And so it has this incredible energy of tenacity, of focus, of really, what am I here for? And the shadow of this can be getting lost in purposeless fight. So, moving into more angry victim stories, post-Christmas, that first week in January, the January blues, oh my goodness, what's the point, etc., etc. Well, really, the pressure there is to help us go, hang on a minute, what have I just done with my last year? What do I want to focus on? What's important to me? So that's gate 38, the fighter, between the 1st and the 5th of January. So I don't know if there's anything that correlates, Rachel, is interesting.
Well, astrologically, Mercury was still in retrograde as we entered the new year. So we were still in very much like a reflective period. But there are so many aspects that point towards this reflection at the moment. There's like this whole mopping up that goes between now and the 22nd of January when Pluto enters Aquarius. So really there's so much Capricorn energy right now, and we're right on the end of it. We're right at the end. There's so much of a review and reflection about what's been going on in our lives, what's been going on for us, and looking back, even through big patterns of time. So I had a very strong sense that when we entered the new year, this whole usual new year, new you, set new goals, it was like, oh gosh, if that's resonating for you, okay. But for most people, we were like, oh gosh, no, there's that internal pressure to kind of make sense. Just such a what's been going on, you know. And when you think about the whole period of time, which is the last 15 years of Pluto in Capricorn, there has been tremendous upheaval and unearthing, and a deep amount of very difficult work having been done. And you will know this as a trauma therapist, my goodness, there has been the dissembling of patriarchal constructs. And this is very much Capricorn energy, because Capricorn is earth, and it's what have we done, what structures have we built on this earth, what have we created, who created them, who told us how we had to be, do, think, say, all of the above. And everybody's having this kind of reflection on, what did I make of that? What happened?
Absolutely. And this entry into the January through this fight gate, which has the capacity for great vision. But we need to move through the fight, you know, that use the energy. One of the biggest challenges most people have culturally, particularly women, is accessing healthy anger. You know, using that healthy anger to do their no. And so that's the beginning of January. If we're not awash in the post-Christmas, you know, excess, can be this time of, instead of starting anew, like you say, more a period of like, hang on, let's review, let's take some space and time in this first 3 weeks to really use the energetics of the gate to focus in different areas before we move into that more new beginnings energy, which is the gate 41 on the 23rd, which corresponds with what we say Pluto moving into Aquarius.
Yeah, so the sun moves into Aquarius on the 21st of January. Pluto moves into Aquarius on the 22nd.
Wow.
So it's a very, you know, that week, that few days is going to be very energetically different. What I would like to also just mention is that when we imagine patriarchy, oh, we don't need to imagine it, when we deconstruct it, when we kind of look at the patriarchy within ourselves, where we have internalized it, there are different stages to where we have each gone on that journey, and each of us are carrying different codes, you know, and different stories through the lived journey and experience. And we've each made different sense of our own individual valid experiences. I think what I would like to say for anybody who's watching, who's in the coaching, awakening, spiritual industry, you will have seen, because it was unavoidable to see, where certain people, and I am not naming names, I'm talking about patterns, there was almost like a fight energy taken between coaches, and almost like, I am a spiritual coach who thinks A, and B over here is saying this, and that's not the meaning I've made of it. So don't follow A, come along and follow B. And it had like, and a lot of other people who were going, whoa, this looks like mean girl energy, or this actually looks like patriarchy. We're not here to compete. Then there was like the C's going, huh? What's going on? This is like just another layer of fight and patriarchy.
Well, interestingly, the next gate between the 6th and the 11th of January is gate 54, which is the gate of ambition. And so, and what you're talking about there is this kind of shadow aspect, the patriarchal aspect, the unhealthy masculine aspect of fight and ambition. And so the beautiful aligned version of gate 54 is called the gate of drive traditionally. And it's a really around mastery of the material plane. So mastery of your time, your resources, your money, your financial success, but in a way that is ongoingly taking you on your spiritual path. Now, of course, we cannot but be conditioned in our culture, and many of us will get caught up in just wanting to make money and wanting to be successful. Success means looking like this and driving this car and having this much money. And one of the energies of this gate is this incredible opportunity to really go, I can master the material plane because I am a human being. I'm a soul who chose to have a human experience. And being a human means being in the material plane. How can I master this to take me into deeper success? And that means on not just what you're doing, but also how we are internally and regulated. And which takes us fundamentally more into flow states in terms of regulation word, and which moves us closer to our spiritual purpose.
Yes.
And so it's a really interesting gate on the back of fight, because fight gives this opportunity to reflect on, well, what's my purpose and why am I here? And then the ambition helps to then focus that. So if we're still caught in, well, I need to be better than so-and-so, and I need to be the leading X, Y, Z, then we're going to take that into this ambitious, blind ambition. So that's that, and the energetic really of that between like the 1st to the 11th, which we're just coming to the end of, because this begins today on the 11th. Yes. And so we've been in this kind of like real stirred up pot of like, who am I? What am I here to do? How can I become successful in a way that is really about deepening my own potential in the world?
Absolutely. And I noticed something that I kind of perceived and felt like I could see coming, but maybe not quite articulate, but I'm noticing something that is the people who have been, and I mean women who are visible business women, visible coaches, people who have done a lot to really revolutionize and, as you say, master their own lives, master business, and really taken people with them and done a lot. I'm noticing a lot of them kind of waking up to and talking about their next layer of spiritual beingness, their next layer of purpose. And at the same time, the people who have been on a path of, I must fulfill my purpose and I have a sacred mission, are kind of going, oh, maybe we could be wealthy at the same time. Let's get some business skills. And there's been like this two-pronged approach. And it's quite interesting to see the shakedown of it, as though somebody's like, taken apart all the pieces of a jigsaw, shaken them, chucked them up in the air. And it's like, where are they landing now? What does the new picture look like now? But it's so interesting that you talk about this mastery of the material plane, because at its best, this is Capricorn energy. This is what we want to be doing as for the Capricorn within us. And let's not forget that we all have Capricorn somewhere in our chart. And I just wrote about this morning. I felt very in celebration of the wise mountain goat who puts steadily one hoof in front of the other, surveys the terrain. And whether it's really rocky, whether it gets icy, whether it gets slippy, that mountain goat knows how to navigate its own mountain. It's completely earthed. It knows the landscape, and it stops and it looks over. It looks up and it goes, I can get up there. It looks really hard, but I know I can do it. I'm built for this. And then looks out on the scenery and it goes, I'm partway up the mountain. I'm going up the next bit. And that real rock steady surety and ability to master it. The goats, they look like they've got the tiniest, spindliest legs versus big body. They still get up the mountain.
Yeah.
And there's that in all of us. It's like that long-term planning, far-reaching goals. That's what we're heading to today. Actually, in the next hour, we will have the new moon in Capricorn on the 11th of January, 111 day. So we keep, for anybody else who keeps saying 111, it's today. We get to set our goals. What are our long-term goals? Where do we put one hoof in front of the other? And also there is that element of looking back and going, look how far I came. Look what I just did.
Well, well, that's beautiful, because the next gate that we're moving into, which is at some point today and tomorrow, is gate 61, which is the only gate in the crown during January. So this is the pressure center of the crown. And gate 61 is called the inner truth. And it's about mysteries of life. And it's about taking this moment to this transit, the next 6 days, to really reflect on, well, why? So I've moved through this energy of like, well, hang on a minute, this fight energy of like, what I want to focus my purpose, and then moving more into this ambition about how am I going to master it, what do I want to do, what are my ambitions, and then just taking this period of time just to go, and let me just really deeply reflect on the inner truth for me, and knowing that the inner truth for me is different for another person. And it's this opportunity to really take in this last year, particularly because we're moving towards the end of the rave mandala, the rave year, which then, you know, the next week we'll be moving into. And before we then really start putting our hooves in front of the other in that Capricorn way and move into Aquarius, it's about, okay, I'm getting clearer about where I want to focus. Let me just really take some time to reflect and think on this. So this next transit is a time of thinking in this reflective, philosophical, deepening into our own truth. The challenge of it is, as ever with the crown, is getting, most people have got an undefined or open crown. And we can get into overwhelm and thinking too much and thinking that we need to solve everything and doubting ourselves. And so the key with this next 6 days really is about deepening into your, bringing in, knowing the difference between knowledge that you can read and get anywhere, get from anywhere, and wisdom. So gate 61 is this inner mystery, this access to divinity for you and your own truth, and integrating that, the knowledge you've accumulated, into the wisdom, and bringing it really, and I keep doing this, I'm noticing I keep doing this movement. It's about bringing it down into the body. So if you find yourself caught up in the next 6 days in that loss, why am I here? What's the point? Why? Come to the body, come into this beautiful vehicle that you have chosen to be born into, and see if you can take time and space to, before you start moving slowly up the mountain, or even while you're moving slowly up the mountain, you know, just be in this, like, let me just reflect a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Well, that's one of my favorite gates, actually, because, you know, I've got a defined crown in my...
I do.
So that's me asking why all the time. Go and find the question. And it's so important for us to, when we're asking why and finding our own answers, to really honor the validity of our truth. So whatever our lives brought to us in that truthful experience, that stays. You own that. You own your journey. You own your valid experiences. You own the truth and depth of your emotions that you had. The meaning you make after, you get to change that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
next week, I might think there's different meaning to that thing that happened last week. Next year, I certainly will think there's different meaning. But where I think sometimes there is conflict, it's where we can get caught up in thinking that we get to make meaning about somebody else's journey, because that can never be so.
Absolutely.
Coming back to that, what's true for me? Yeah. Let's just be with that in this body for me.
Yes. Oh, I love that, Rach. Yeah, and that this is a very easily influenced state, influential state, I guess, in that if we're in the why, particularly if we've got the open or undefined crown, we can be very then easily pulled into somebody else's truth. And yeah, this come back to that Capricorn energy of like, this is solid earth, come back down into the matter of the body. And then we move into the final gate in Capricorn, which is gate 60, which is all about acceptance and limitation. So this is the final gate in the rave year. And so this is the time And when you were talking, it's a very practical gate. So again, it's very Capricorn by the sounds of it, you know, just this, it's this, I actually have this as my ascendant, gate 60. And it's this time of going, okay, I didn't do that, or I did this and it didn't really work out. Okay, and you know, keep going forward, keep refocusing, keep finding that. So it's this capacity to accept that we are limited, you know, in the material plane in lots of different ways, and there are boundaries and restrictions around us that can really serve us as well. You know, how can structure really serve us? How can structure really support us to then move more towards the manifestation of our hopes and dreams, which is the beginning of the new year coming up? And the challenge of this gate being getting too rigid and getting too inflexible, and also getting very melancholic. So this gate can really hold this opportunity for acceptance of limitation, acceptance of stuff that you perhaps haven't achieved or done or whatever, in this very practical, pragmatic way. But it can also have this aspect of, oh, not good enough as well.
Yeah. I love what you say there about reviewing structures and systems. That's very Capricorn. And I want to just bring in the fact that the sun is currently moving round about 22 degrees of Capricorn. Now, this is exactly the same degree of Capricorn that we had on the 12th of January 2020. So we're looking at exactly 4 years ago, when Saturn and Pluto were conjunct together. Now, these are the big boys, the big bad boys of the zodiac. So Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, and Saturn is all about the way that we organize society. It is literally, you know, how many people do we employ in Westminster? What money do we pay in our taxes? It's literally at that level. How do we organize the healthcare system, police, education? It is all of that. And we've all had, you know, Pluto is utter revolution. So it's power, but it's what is power? It's not power for power's sake and taking control and coercion. And if it has been, then Pluto will revolutionize deeply over the long term. And it speaks to transformation on a cellular level from within. So it forces everything to die off that will not serve us in the next generation. So we each carry Pluto. And I wrote something the other day, which was like, I don't want anyone to think that Pluto, the planet, dwarf planet, comes down from the sky, gets a spade and shovels out and unearths what's wrong about our society. It's the Pluto activated within each of us that has an inner drive and compulsion to destroy and kill off which does not serve us for the future. Okay, so we have done this, and I want to put the power back in human beings' hands. Whatever did not serve us and work for us, that's what we sought to say no to. That's where we destroyed the fabric of what wasn't working. So maybe some people were working in workplaces, and then a couple of months later, boom, pandemic, lockdown hits. And people suddenly discover that they can actually work from home, or they didn't need all the meetings or all the emails. And so everybody had this like front row seat to, what are the structures of our society? How have we been organizing our lives? So because of that complete shattering of the foundations of how things were, everybody got to go, whoa, hang on a minute. So what I'm saying is, right now, the sun and moon are shining at exactly the same point in the sky that this massive triggering conjunction happened in January 2020. So it's like we're getting to review 4 years ago and go, what just happened this last 4 years?
Wow, that's phenomenal. And so that gate 60 energy is really going to offer us the opportunity to reflect on, to accept, and be practical about, well, what works now? How do we, instead of being in this, narrative of this dreadful experience we all had, etc., which was very challenging for very many people, it's really about, well, what practically has grown from that that we can now then embed into our future, which is now the next gate, which we're moving then into on the 23rd, which is gate 41, the beginning of the rave new year in human design. And this is the most beautiful gate. It's again in the roots, so it's another pressure gate, and it's about pressure to dream into a future. So it's gate 41 is a really special gate in human design. It's all about initiations, about beginnings, about hopes and dreams.
So doesn't it seem funny that, I mean, you started off by saying about the Gregorian calendar, you know, doesn't it seem funny that we have this 1st of January as though, oh, today everybody has to set goals. It's like cosmically, it makes no sense.
Makes no sense at all, particularly and this first 3 weeks, of January, being much more about this kind of like, well, let's just really like, hang on, who am I? What's happened? Let me think about that. Let me accept what's happened. Let me focus forward. And it taking this sort of 3 weeks of different aspects of this, it's like a big cauldron. And that's lovely that word came in, because gate 41 is sometimes seen as an empty cauldron. Ooh. It's like it's called the gate of contraction, which always made me feel a bit confused. A lot of the human design gates come from the I Ching. The names come from the I Ching, and often they are quite confusing for my Western brain to kind of go, what does that actually mean? Because I think a contraction has been going small, whereas hopes and dreams are about expansion, you know. And actually it's more around this empty cauldron, this contraction of everything that you don't need anymore. And so that you can then start to dream, well, what do I want to bring into my cauldron? And so the first 3 weeks of January have been this kind of like stirring up of the cauldron, what's gone past in this last year, and let's get rid of it. Let's move it on and move it. You know, use that Capricorn energy just to sort of slowly be with that. And then
that's so funny. I actually wrote in my Facebook group yesterday, I feel like a witch today because there are so many things brewing in my cauldron.
Yes.
I wrote that, and you're saying the exact same.
Yeah. So I guess we're at a point now where we're like, well, what do we want to chuck out the cauldron? And what do we want to really intuitively, really specifically, really, there's just this quality of real discernment about what do we want to bring into the cauldron, you know, what are our hopes and dreams? And the shadow of this can be dreaming and hoping. The shadow of it can be, if only I won the lottery. Whereas I see the alignment of it as being, what if, which is a very different, what if I was to send that email to that person and ask for XYZ? What if I was to start eating in a different way? What if it has such a different energy, does it, to like, oh, if only I ate better.
It's very inspiring.
Yeah, yes, it's a gorgeous gate 41. So it's in my moon actually. So
it's very interesting about the phrase throwing the baby out with the bathwater keeps coming up, because when we're thinking about getting rid of old structures, I did a little bit of an experiment post the other day. I get a hunch and I write on Facebook. There's no strategy to my social media marketing. I just go, inspiration, there you go. And I wrote, okay, if you were in charge of UK school system, what would you do? So interesting how some people will modify, some people will tweak, some people will utterly destroy and rebuild. Really, really interesting, because it all speaks to the energy of everything that you've just said. It's like, what is that compulsion? How bad do you think things are in order to completely reject everything? Or actually, is there quite a lot that's really working? Yeah. You know, so it is that like throwing out the baby with the bathwater, because, you know, and sometimes we can do that in our business. And I'd just like to speak to the fact that, you know, Capricorn is seen as being the strategist, the CEO. I know at this time I decided not to run a Capricorn season course, because I wanted to use Capricorn season to be my own CEO, to do my own reflection. I'm sorry, everyone, I'm too busy doing my own thing to guide you.
Oh, that's perfect. And so much of the energy in these first 3 weeks of January, in this Capricorn aspect as well, from a nervous system point of view, because it's in this adrenal line, mainly apart from the 61 up in the crown, but you know, when we get caught up in pressurized thoughts, it can then create, you know, pressure internally as well. There's so much about this activation of the adrenals at a point in the northern hemisphere when we're at midwinter. For me, it's just like, please use the energy of this to really take time to, like, you know, batten down the hatches and be with yourself throughout the whole of this process, this 3-week process of like, okay, let me work through what it is I want to let go of, what do I want to focus, what do I want to, you know, accept, what do I not want to accept. And the biggest thing is how to, my main mantra, anyone who works with me will just go, I just constantly go on about resting. How do you rest? And this coming back to this reclaiming pressure as something that's very transformational. We can only use pressure to transform if we're rested enough. Because if we're not rested enough in our bodies and our nervous system, what we're doing is just building the adrenal pressure that goes up and up and up, and then we move into stress states and activate trauma patterns, etc., etc. We can use pressure to our benefit when we go, right, this is a pressurized situation. I'm reflecting on my whole purpose, or I'm reflecting on, you know, my inner truth. How do I make sure that I take enough time to come into my deep rest, into myself, to, like, you know, cut off unnecessary interaction this time, and then we can use that, the beauty of that pressure to transmutation.
Amazing. So really, suitable tasks at this time are rest, reflection, finding out, if we're looking from a business perspective, is reviewing with the CEO hat on what worked for me last year, over the last 2 years, over the last 4 years. What worked? What do I enjoy the most? What needs to go? Maybe you've been running community events and you're like, do you know what? Don't actually like it. Okay, chuck it out.
Absolutely. And who are your allies as well? I mean, this conversation came about very much on the back of me. I think I contacted you around January the 6th, which was the beginning of the Gate of Ambition. I hadn't particularly clocked that. I just was like, I want to talk to Rachel about this. And this is really it's got a Gate 54, which is the last day of today. It's called the Marrying Maiden as well. And so it's all about who are you going to marry in that, you know, material sense of where are you going to hitch your wagon? Who are you going to hitch your wagon to, you know, in that kind of way. So it's an opportunity to certainly be, and this is what's happened between us, is like, let's bring our ambition, that energy of ambition together, and share our experiences of the material world for our good and for the greater good, etc., etc. So yes, it's a lovely time for reflection and rest, and then reaching out if it feels good, always in human design, generally being a human, if it feels good in a wholesome, nourishing way, it's probably the right thing to do.
Love that. And also there's another, just one final thing that I would like to speak to that I've noticed is spirituality is not one thing. Being spiritual is honoring, you know, to my mind, it's honoring your own sense of spirit in this human existence. And I think what I very much notice is there are many pockets of people awakening, and they're awakening quite rightly through their own journey, through their own life, through their own experiences in their own way. And each of us is doing that. So where we do the marrying maiden, where we go, who do I want to marry up with? Who's really talking my language here for this new age? What I notice very much is that people can exist in their groups and their pockets adjacent. I am in full love and support of these people over here, whilst honouring my own energy by saying I don't want to be in their gang, because I just know myself well enough to not want to be. So there is also that energy. We can say, look at them, they're working towards love and unity and spirituality and awakening and all the things, but I'll be over here doing it my way. And that's really okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, of course, yeah. And a big part of Gate 61 really is really deeply understanding the laws of the universe. And so that the law of vibration, resonance, laws of attraction, it's like actually we are designed to be moving through different vibrations as we awaken, as we start to remember who we are. And tools like human design, which gives you this beautiful blueprint, and astrology gives you the blueprint. These are all tools that are here to support you to awaken to the person you're meant to be, to help us shed the layers of conditioning, the trauma, the cultural expectations, etc., etc. And as we do so, the vibrations start to change. And at this point, the midpoint that we're about to move into actually next week, tomorrow onwards, is a chance to go, who do I vibrate? Where do I vibrate? Where do I feel good? Which is, if you feel good, you're vibrating at a level that's in attunement with you. And that may well be a letting go of people.
Yes.
Or experiences, etc. So we've spoken for a good half an hour, and I know that the final gate, and maybe we will reflect more on that when we talk about, because we move into it on the 29th of January. And it's the first gate of the new year is 41. So it feels quite good to really end with 41, because that's that kind of hopes and dreams. But just to complete January, we move into gate 19, which is the gate of attunement and sensitivity to one's needs and the needs of the collective. And so once you've had this time to spend with your hopes and dreams, it's really then the next step of like, well, what are my real needs to do that? How am I going to achieve that? And that will then move into February as well, the beginning of February. So it's this sort of Aquarian aspect too. So that feels, I'm sure we'll touch on that when we talk about the February gates as well. But yes, just seeing how these gates make sense as they build, on top, on another, acceptance.
It's beautiful, isn't it? And to know that people are activated and, who've got those defined centers and who've got those gates in their own chart, and, sort of being aware of how that gets expressed through those individuals, as well as the fact that we all get the opportunity to be in that energy. You've enhanced my understanding of human design by talking about this today, so thank you.
And likewise with this, I mean, this already blew my mind. It's like your capacity as a projector as well to be able to assimilate and share that. I deeply appreciate it. It's wonderful. And just as that was just to touch on that, you may well have defined in your charts certain gates. That means that you have constant access to that energy whenever it's always there for you consistently. But we all have access to all of it all the time. We just have to understand how we can focus. So when we're in a transit, it's available for everybody. So if you have the gate, I have gate 41, I have it in my moon. So I work with that gate 41 a lot because it's in my moon energy. So, but I don't have gate 61. So we're about to go into this gate 61 of inner truth. And so I'm going to really deepen into, okay, the why question, and use that consciously. So.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom today, and look forward to chatting to you in February.
Yes, we will do. Thank you.